Cyber attacks increased 13% on businesses last year alone. Solution? Cyber self-defense classes.
Karim is checking his email, and there is a spam. And where there's spam?
There's malware.
So, spam! No more spam.
I think that went really well. We all learned a valuable lesson.
Orange Cyber Defense.
Hej och välkomna allihopa. And hi and welcome everybody. So my name is Anna Barkwall. I'm Director of Strategic Programs here at Orange Cyber Defense Group, and I manage the Microsoft Strategic Program here. Bastian.
Yeah, and hi everyone, and welcome to today's session. My name is Bastian Eitner. I'm a technology specialist here at Microsoft dealing with our data security and compliance solutions.
So first, a little short introduction about Orange Cyber Defense. Orange Cyber Defense, we are a group within Orange Group that only work with cybersecurity, and we are around 3,000 experts in the organization, and we have quite many Microsoft certified people that are carrying one or multiple certifications. We deliver managed security services to our customers around the globe 24/7 from our SOCs that are interconnected. We are a strategic partner for Microsoft, and we have several specializations. Among one is cybersecurity, solution partner security. And our services are vetted and verified by Microsoft, so we carry the MXR certification. We are a leader in Europe when it comes to managed security services, and we are number 4 globally. So before we run, we would like to run a short poll. Are you ready to respond?
So Anna, while people are answering our poll here, we perhaps should just mention that we're not going to a deep demonstration in terms of what Copilot for Microsoft 365 is. We will make sure we include some material in the broadcast we send out. But in short, for those who don't know the exact capabilities of Copilot for M365, it's a generative AI engine that we have created that really can make your productivity among your employees much better, since we can provide answers based on the huge source of data that it resides within your Microsoft 365 tenant. So that means the person's emails or the documents that the person have access to. And thereby we can boost productivity, because you can in plain language ask questions like, what meetings do I have today? Or what should I know about this specific customer? And then Copilot will help you actually go and gather that information and present that in a quick and easy answer. You can also get Copilot to actually help you write suggestions to emails. So if you're trying to put forward something that you find hard to articulate, well, then Copilot can actually help you do that, present that in a way that makes it look very professional. It can also help you write documents. So for example, say, please write a summary of what this feature that we have in a product is. Then it'll collect information about it and write a very good summary. So again, it can really help boost productivity. So, and I see that our results are in now.
Yes, And I will take them from small to large in that order. 5% of you have responded that you don't using it today and you're not having any plans for it. 16% are using it, deployed, or partly or fully using it. And 79% are considering a deployment of Copilot for 365. So quite interesting result as I see it, and that means that it's a lot of preparation you need to do, and we will try to guide you in this today, where to start and what to do. But before that, I brought in this slide because there's a lot of people talking that AI is new. No, it's not actually new. It was born 1956, so it has been around for some time. In 1997, we saw the first machine learning, that is a subset of AI coming, and where they basically used existing data to improve decision making and predictions. 2017, we saw deep learning coming, which is a machine learning technique what works on neural networks and used to process data and make decision on it. And then 2021, we saw the daylight of generative AI, where the purpose is more, as Bastian, you mentioned, you can ask Copilot to write something for you or create a funny picture or a PowerPoint presentation. So that's what we're seeing today and what's a part of Microsoft Copilot for 365. And just to put some reality around things, it took 16 years for the mobile phone to reach 100 million users, internet 7 years, Facebook 4.5, and then ChatGPT, when that was launched, 3 months. So the speed of deploying and using is going extremely fast, and that's why I also think it's extremely important to ensure that you actually do the right thing in the right order, because otherwise it can go wrong. And what we think is important is just don't start to use AI without knowing what you want to do. You need to set up goals. What are the organization's goals for using AI? What do we want to achieve? What are the pain points where AI can make a good use? And what kind of capabilities do we have within the organization? And then the next step will be to tap into the data strategy. Do we have a data strategy in place in the organization? And have we the infrastructure and resources needed to support an AI project? These things need to be very clear and documented and agreed in the organization before you actually carry on and just deploy things without having a policy. And why are we doing this? I would say one reason is, of course, improved quality of work. We have seen use of AI for blood samples and these kind of tests when you go to the hospitals, etc. X-rays, we do extremely good quality result. But here we're talking about for an M365 environment where I can get rid of repetitive tasks or easy tasks. I can ask teams to take the meeting notes, prepare a PowerPoint for my next coming meeting, etc. So it's about productivity, to squeeze out more of every employee and work faster, reduce repetitive stuff, but also a way to satisfy everybody that works in an organization with good tools that makes them feel good at work, which is all very important. But it always comes with, you need to control things. We have for a number of years not taking data leakage for real. Now we have a reason to talk about it. And data leakage can be conscious or unconscious. And from our Security Navigator report that was launched a couple of months ago, we see that 43% of all data leakage are coming externally from, and 37 internal, and 17 we actually haven't been able to declare where did it come from at all. So this is important. And now when you do a Copilot for security, Copilot for M365 journey, you actually have a good opportunity to take care of the data leakage risk and take things in control. And you must trust data, otherwise you can't use it. So you need to ensure that you have a well-organized data structure, that it's governed, protected, that you also have, if you don't have, establish a good data governance framework and policies that documents what kind of data usage is okay, how should we share, and what is the retention of data, when should we decommission data, how long do we trust data. And it needs to be deployed properly over the organization, and also ensure that the right access controls are in place. You classify and label your data, and the permissions are in place, because Copilot for M365 use the data you have access to. So that's a very important foundation to start with. And you should look at this before, not after, because we have seen cases where it didn't go that well when you're oversharing, and just the risk of oversharing data. Bastian, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. So before I go into some of the more details in terms of how we can help making sure that your data is secure with our Microsoft Purview components, I would like to do a short poll just to make sure that we can get some grasp in terms of where you are. When we're talking the security risk of generative AI, with your data, and if you're taking any precautions. So if you could, please go and vote. And Medina, while you do, could I be promoted while we're doing the poll?
Sorry, Bastian, say that again.
Could you perhaps promote me, please?
Promote you? What do you mean?
Presenter.
Oh, make you presenter. Sorry, I can't. I need to wait for the poll to finish.
Okay, perfect.
Sorry. And then after the poll, I can I give you presenter rights.
Thank you.
The data is coming in, by the way. Votes are coming in.
Yep.
Good.
It's going to be interesting to see. It's like an election. We did have one far ago.
No, but also this poll will give us kind of an idea as to how you're perceiving generative AI as a security risk, or if not. So.
And interesting, what I have seen when I talked to, a little bit with different customers around in Europe lately, is that I see a trend of people starting to buy their own different AI products and installing them on work computers, which is shadowing IT and not really good.
Okay, cool. I just saw here that we have about 5% of you that block the use of all AI. So, that's a very interesting thing, because as a very famous actor in a very famous movie, Jurassic World, said that nature will find its way. So people will probably somehow find a way to wiggle around any blockages they see along their path of productivity. So, and I also see that some of you have blacklisted some sites, but you can't control which data is transferred, and then the majority of you have no measures in place. So let me take you further, but firstly, if you could, Miranda, please hit a button for me, please. Thank you. Okay. And yeah. So The scenario of data leakage is not uncommon, and we have seen incidents with customers where when generative AI started, people thought, hey, let's go to ChatGPT and have that do all my work. Let's feed it whatever I have to be able to produce a new document for me. So we see employees putting in confidential information, perhaps personal information, into some of those generative AIs, which results, of course, in your sensitive data being leaked. It causes a violation, both of perhaps AI regulations. Now we have seen that the EU has come out with the AI Act, but there also might be other standards being violated, for example, GDPR. And of course, then it ends up in the results, as we also saw, that some companies actually go and put a full ban on all generative AI tools. Well, the full ban is okay, you can say, but AI has come, and I believe it's come to stay. So whenever we saw some of the new trends that Anna showed earlier, there would always be people saying, well, it's a firefly. It comes, it goes, it's gone tomorrow. So, but generative AI seems to be here to stay. And some of the things that this company will then lose out of is the productivity gains that you can get from the generative AI tools. So how would we perhaps look further into why or what could have helped them in this case? Well, first of all, usually many companies don't have any visibility into what apps are being used and what data is being shared. Like also more than half of the people here said, well, we don't have any controls to say what data is being shared with these AI tools, and there's no protection controls in place. So we don't have control over our data. Also, the generative AI apps, well, they also lack built-in controls. You don't have a data processing agreement necessarily with a public generative AI app. You, of course, do with our Microsoft Copilot, and that's where we're differentiating a bit. There are AI apps that you have control over that are part of your data processing arrangements with your vendors, and then there are the ones that are publicly available. But Microsoft Copilot, well, of course, that would be a generative AI app where you do have built-in controls to make sure that you don't accidentally leak data and you don't go in and have some governance in place. Again, if this is the case where you ban all tools, you don't reap the benefits. But in Microsoft, we have seen that the AI wave is coming, and we have sat down and said, okay, so how can we help making sure that, for example, in this scenario, that we have tools that can assist and be able to make sure that you utilize AI in a controlled way. So we have actually tools to help you discover the use of AI. So that would both be through our Microsoft Entra, in terms of utilizing cloud apps. We can do a discovery of usage of sites. With Microsoft Defender, we can go and block sites. We can also see what sites are being visited by your users. And with Microsoft Purview, we have a deeper insight and can track even further down in terms of which sites have been accessed and which data was shared with that site. So a whole lot of discover opportunities. And the same goes for our protection capability. So we can actually put down protection, again, utilizing our tool suites in our security area. We can go in and protect your data from being leaked to other sites. Microsoft Copilot for M365 is an enterprise-ready app. So we come with these enterprise-ready apps where we have sat down and actually made a decision and taken control of this. You can, of course, also create your own AI apps utilizing some of the tools we have available in Azure for AI, and thereby create your own enterprise-ready apps. The worst thing you can ever imagine would be that you're just utilizing whatever is being published on the wide internet. There are multiple apps out there that might be beneficial, but also where you lose control of your data. So, for example, Firefly's AI is another app I've seen, which some companies' users are adapting And Fireflies is a note-taking tool that you, for example, can make sure invites itself to all your team meetings and records the meeting and do a transcript. But that recording and all of that data is then stored outside of your realm without the control of the data and also what's in that data. Again, it could be sensitive data that you don't want anyone else to get hold of. And since you don't have a data processing agreement with that company, for example, then you have no control in terms of where is that data ending up, how is it being processed, where is it even being stored, are we complying with the data regulations in terms of local data residency storages. So enterprise ready apps is what we do at Microsoft. We are ensuring that we can conform with all of these regulations, make sure that we can provide governance on top of these. And of course, we then unleash productivity because not only do we have the AI app, but we also have the tools to discover, protect, and govern the use of it. So that's very important. By the way, we forgot to mention when we started up here, Anna, that if you have any questions as we go along, please feel free to put them in the question sections in the GoToWebinar. We will follow up on the questions as we go along. At the end, then we'll take the questions that have come in. But feel free to ask any questions to what we're saying today. So looking generally at security concerns in terms of AI usage, well, we see that there are kind of three main categories. There are data leaks, where we are seeing that people inadvertently leaking sensitive data to AI apps and again losing control of them. There's also the data oversharing. It might be that people are getting access to data that they didn't know they had access to, but since now this is available for the AI agent to find, you can, in a simple question, actually find data that you might not or should not have had access to. And then, of course, there's the non-compliant usage. So generative AI is a fantastic engine because whereas before, when you try to find something, for example, search for a file, you needed to know either the content or the file name or stuff like that. So with generative AI, you can actually formulate a question in terms of, give me a list of files containing passwords that are stored within my company. And then the generative AI engine will go on that mission. So again, there's maybe some non-compliant usage, and that also come back to what Anna started off with, saying that when you're deploying AI tools, you need to have policies in place for this, have a strategy for the use of those, and especially making sure that you know what is a non-compliant use of these tools. So for us, Microsoft Purview plays a very central role in making sure that we keep data secure and that we have governance over data. And we also look at the risk and compliance posture for all of the data that you have access to. So making sure the data is secure not only relies on access, you can say, because looking back in history, when people have been granted access to data because they had a role in a company, well, usually when they change roles, they are not stripped of their access. So when generative AI tools are looking at things you have access to, well, that might not only be your own domain currently that you are hired to do, it could also be previous domains. And then, of course, there's also the possibility of somebody having misplaced a document. So having sensitive information lying around in an area where everybody in the company might have access to. So we need to make sure that we have proper data security in place. That means access governance, a part of our Microsoft Entra Suite. So making sure that you not only seek and apply for access, but also that your access is reviewed, so you have that removed. But also that we're taking steps to ensure that even though the file has been misplaced, then if it's sensitive or confidential, then apply some encryption on there that can then make sure that it's only the relevant people who are able to open them. Then, of course, also making sure that we can reduce the risk by having tools to actually go in and look at the data and what is happening with that. So when we are saying that we are trying to make sure that you comply with regulations and you're using your internal policies in terms of how do we handle AI requests. Then if we look at Microsoft 365, the Copilot for Microsoft 365, then with our Microsoft Purview, we can actually go in and make sure that you don't have data stored for too long. For some of you, data that is stored too long is a risk in itself, because it could be something that contain old information. So if you're asking a generative AI tool to generate something new based on data that you have, then old data is a risk, because the answer that comes out might be wrong, because of it might be old procedures, old documents that it's looking at. So with our lifecycle management, we can set up policies to make sure that we get rid of data when it hits a certain age, whereby you might deem it as unuseful. We also detect with our capabilities for communications compliance, if people are asking the system to generate answers based, for example, on confidential project names, if they're trying to sabotage the company by, for example, asking the AI Copilot to find evidence that can lead to our stock exchange price going down, that could be something. Also in terms of collusion, might be questions coming in. And there we have machine learning based capabilities to actually find something like that. So stock manipulation or bribery, all of that in there. And then finally, we also want to make sure that we know exactly what's been going on. Therefore, we do audit logs for all interactions with the Copilot, and we're also able to do e-discovery on that. So whenever we are requesting the system to deliver data to us based on interactions by users, we can get that data to actually prove what has happened in the company. So how are we then securing data with Purview? Well, we are making sure that we're using what we call sensitivity labels. For some people, it seems like a brand new thing that you need to label your data. But looking back 30, 50 years, it was a very common thing, because we were using rubber stamps on documents. So if we had a classified document, we'd put a rubber stamp on it saying, this is confidential, for example. And thereby people, when they took the document, had it in their hands, they knew how to handle it. But we are utilizing the same concept just digitally by applying sensitivity to data, and thereby providing visibility in terms of which type of data is this and how can we handle it in the system. And we also provide protection then, because when we know which types of data we have, we can ensure that we're not losing that data to, for example, other AI engines than Microsoft 365 Copilot. And we can also put up guardrails to make sure that Microsoft 365 Copilot is not looking in certain areas of your M365 SharePoint sites. And then, of course, we also provide compliance controls to make sure that you handle or can handle the user's access to Microsoft 365 Copilot correctly. So in terms of data leaks, what can we do with Copilot? Well, again, we can provide you with visibility. So we provided a brand new component in our Microsoft Purview suite, which is called AI Hub. This monitors the use of not only Microsoft 365 Copilot, but also other generative AI engines on the net, so Bard or ChatGPT, etc. So we can see what kind of prompts are being asked to those engines and provide visibility in terms of which types of data are being shared with those engines. And then, of course, we can set up data loss prevention policies to prevent you guys from actually having data being leaked to Bard, for example. We can say, well, if the document contains this sensitivity label or have these expressions in there, then you're not allowed to share it with Bard. And then, of course, we have what we call adaptive protection. So we can make sure that if there's a legitimate business use in there, we can allow users to go ahead and do this, but based on the risk that we're looking at for the user. If they're doing this a lot, the risk level can be set to a certain extent to go up. And by that, we can then apply additional things like, well, you can do this, but we will only allow it if you provide a business justification, or if you have done this, but with data that we don't allow, well, then we'll be blocking you going forward. But only that person, not the person sitting next to them. And that is what we have with our data protection. So, as I said, we're using the sensitivity labels, and that also means that if you go into Copilot for M365 and you're asking it to generate, for example, a summary of a document, that's some of the things that AI is really good for. Also, when we have Teams meetings, you do a recording and transcript, you can get a summary printed out in no time, which usually would take quite a long time to actually do that kind of minutes of the meeting. But here you see that we actually have a confidential flag on the source that has been used. So we can see what's been referenced in there. And also, if we are asking Copilot to generate something new, well, it will actually inherit the sensitivity label, making sure that if that former document was encrypted, well, the new thing that's been generated by the AI engine will also be encrypted. So that's kind of keeping tabs with not accidentally generating information that was confidential and being then able to share that because what has been generated isn't classified correctly. And then, of course, also, as I said, extending this to consumer AI applications. So if you have that protected document, or if just, for example, in this case, we have a Project Obsidian mentioned in the document, that's a very secret project for us internally. Well, if you're then trying to have Bart generate something based on this, we can, with our data loss prevention engine, prevent the end user from having that being sent to Bart or any other app for that matter. How can we then help make sure that we don't overshare data? And that is making sure that if it's sensitive data, then we can block it from being used by the AI apps. So that's very important. And what it is that we, for example, we can detect if it contains a keyword or if it contains a sensitivity label. And then with our communications compliance, we can actually have the Copilot for M365 act as it doesn't know what to do with that type of information. We can also make sure that we do auto labeling on content. So if, for example, we ask it to generate something that contains a Project Obsidian reference, well, it can then automatically encrypt the document. And then by applying that encryption label, we can then ensure it's only people who work with Project Obsidian that can actually go and read them afterwards. And then, of course, we can generate our data loss prevention policies again to make sure that we're not exfiltrating data using AI. So, for example, here's an from our communications compliance. There's an employee here, Adele. She's heard rumors about Project Dragon, and she wants to know what that is and when it's going to be announced. So that's usually something where we would put this as inappropriate use of AI. So in terms of this, as soon as Adele she puts in Project Dragon in the prompt, well, the Copilot will say, I don't know anything about this project because we have blocked that. If, for example, it was a policy that had been applied where users who worked on Project Dragon would have access to that information, well, we can have Copilot actually generate the answers for that user because that's okay. They work with Project Dragon. But anyone else asking about Project Dragon, we don't want to allow that, and we'll also raise a flag for our investigations to go on. As I said, we can also make sure that we apply a sensitivity label based on the content. So making sure that when we have information that's been generated by Copilot for M365, we can put that sensitivity label on it and thereby perhaps encrypt the document as well. So our data loss prevention policies will then kick in and take effect. In terms of data compliance, so the non-compliance usage is one of the things that we really look at. And non-compliant usage one thing I just showed before would be to ask about a specific project, but it could also be something more generic, where we want to make sure that we are not utilizing the engines to provide answers that will put our business at risk. And this is also where we then go in and make sure that any interaction a user has had with Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365 will keep that in the audit log, so we can go back and investigate if needed with our e-discovery solutions. So again, we can put retention policies on not only files but also the interactions that a user have had with Copilot, making sure that we remove any old conversations. And then, of course, as I said, we can go into our audit log and we can see, okay, which interactions had there been by this specific user in this time space with Copilot. And also, for example, a summarization here when we're doing an e-discovery case and we are looking at a specific user, if they have done something like insider trading or something like that, we not only get all the emails they've created in the case, but also all the interactions that they've had with Copilot, and thereby making sure we have the evidence, for example, if we need to go to court or if we need to dismiss that employee and have evidence to back that. So, but Anna, back to you to make sure that we can help the customers go on a safe journey with all of these tools, because as I just saw, there is a lot of tools there available, right, Anna?
Yes, indeed. Adina, can you promote me to be presenter? So what I think, given with what's happening now in this journey, that AI is going extremely fast, and we see a lot of different AI products coming in every corner of the building. I think it's important to set the foundation to do a safe Copilot for M365 journey, because it's actually possible to do it and it's the right time to do it. And I think it's better to let people use this kind of Copilot functionality or AI functionality than they start to play around with something they have found by themselves, or by themselves acquired, which is not that uncommon at all. So I see this as a journey, and there's no exact path for every customer what to do and not to do. But I think a foundation of this would be, you should have an incident response agreement with a partner that can come and help you regardless of whatever is happening. And then the journey could look slightly different. I just stacked up a couple of items that can happen on a journey like this. But, oh, sorry, I was cutting 2 pages at the same time. But if you are unsecure and not sure where you are, I think a good start would be to start with our small assessment we have to see if you're basically ready for a journey around Copilot, where we, together with you as a customer, we check if you're ready, try to identify risks, see what kind of baseline you have for security in the organization, and you try to understand your data security state and any potential gaps, and then we can build like a roadmap for you going forward. And if we already know that, okay, you want to run this, we are so secure, we want to learn also a little bit at the same time around Purview, I would in that case suggest a data security engagement. It's going a little bit deeper than the previous assessment I mentioned, where we look into the organization's risk of dark data running around. We also look at insider risk. We look at your data protection standards against other in the same industry vertical as you are. We basically deploy Purview. We run it together, so you also get a feeling for the product, how it works and how you deploy it and how you manage it. And based on this, we then deliver a report to you as a customer with recommendation on how to move forward around things. And what's important here is that it's just a little bit of time effort for you for this. We now and then feel and also have a gut feeling that the 365 environment by itself might not be configured as it should. We do have a special assessment for that, where we basically go in and check how is your M360 environment set up and configured. Is anything wrong? Are you vulnerable for something in your organization? Any common concerns? So we basically go in hands on keyboard and check how it looks like for you. And we can, of course, deploy Purview and implement it and run it for you, or whatever you want to. There are many other services in our portfolio, and I'm not going to go into depth of all of them. But as I mentioned, incident response is something I recommend any customer to have, whatever they're doing. On top of that, I would say that if you run a Defender environment, if just Defender for Endpoint or Defender for Cloud Apps and Identity, etc., all of these generates alerts that is very important to bring in and analyze 24/7. So here we have our Managed Theft Detection Service, where we bring in these alerts and we can actually take action on what's happening out there. And Microsoft has great products, and Orange Cyber Defense know what they're doing about cybersecurity. We live and breathe cybersecurity. So when you combine these two leaders on the market, you get a great value. Sorry for the light, it's turning on and off. We have our operations covered around the entire globe, so we can deliver both local and global. We usually try to set up a customer where it makes sense for them to have the core delivery. If it's a Swedish customer, we of course will deploy them in Sweden if they would like that. If it's a customer in Switzerland, we might go for Switzerland. Or if it's an international customer, we can have a discussion about what would make best for them. And what we usually say is that you not only need a Microsoft partner, you need a cybersecurity advisor that actually knows Microsoft security products very well. And with that, we have come to the last slide. I have a few questions. Bastian, I think I have one for you here.
Yep.
For better data governance, pre Copilot implementation, how important is it to implement Purview before?
So in general, I know that data governance is some area that has been neglected a lot by companies. And we see kind of an anxiety in terms of turning on a tool like Copilot and 365 because it could expose data that's available for the end user that they don't know they have access to. Which is why that Microsoft Copilot, is really important that, Microsoft Purview is really important that you actually go and do implementation of that, making sure that you are starting, and I know it's a journey, and that's why also, and as you said on your last slide, you not only need somebody who knows the tech, but also can take you on that journey. So because you need to have procedures in place and policies in place for making sure that people actually put a sensitivity label on their data, and also what sensitivity labels are there for them to use, and they understand why they're doing it, not least, because the why is always the big issue in getting people to change behavior. But in terms of making sure that, for example, you're keeping you need to, when you start a Purview project, you should start by focusing on the important parts of your business. So for example, that could be R&D, that could be HR, that could be finance. So where the important data lies. and making sure that you have that set of data under control. And then you can branch your way out from there. But at least you should have sensitivity labels there, not only just for the label of the data and data loss prevention policies, but we are coming up with functionality where we can tell M365 Copilot that you can work on anything except documents labeled with this. So for example, saying any highly confidential document, Copilot, it's off limits. And then Copilot doesn't matter where it's stored, it won't use that in its responses. So that's why it's critical that you actually go and have a look at this if you care about the data that's there. And also then making sure that you do that cleanup of data. Data is a risk, regardless how you see it, both in terms of protecting your IP, but also in terms of GDPR, that's data that needs to be removed. So really recommendable that you look at Purview, but also if you want to monitor the use of, because a lot of people fixes compliance with policies. So we have created a policy here saying we can use Copilot for Microsoft 365 for these purposes, but not these purposes. And then you want to monitor if people actually violate that, because policies aren't worth the paper it's written if you don't have any controls. So yeah, definitely it's really critical to have a look at least implementing some of these features before you release Microsoft 365 Copilot to all your users.
We have another question that is more related to, I think, where to start, and I can respond to that one. I think what I see when customers are doing this with a good success is when they start small with 365 Copilot, a Copilot for M365, sorry for that. It identify a small group, a small use case, deploy Purview, monitor it, and take small steps instead of deploying it for everybody at the same time, because then you can control it, you can stop it if you see that something is happening, so you have basically control of it. Another question was also related to security budget. I know that data security has been related for a long time, and many organizations struggles with security budget, but now when we have a great wish for Copilot for M365 in many organizations, I think it's actually time to push back from security and say, hey, if you want to have these nice tools and save hours, we also need to invest in something we should have done for years. So that's a little bit of my thinking. Then we have some questions that are more or less the same as the previous one you responded to. And maybe we have a minute or two for the last one. Can you block all documents that doesn't have a sensitivity label?
So as I said, right now we're working on, currently we can block certain sites and omit those from Copilot for M365. So you can say, well, all of these sites belonging to R&D, all the SharePoint sites belonging to HR and to finance, we'll block those from Microsoft 365 Copilot. Then Copilot won't go look there. So the next step we're taking is that we're implementing that feature I just mentioned, where we can look at the sensitivity label on documents, saying, well, we can look at all documents except for those labeled with this and this label. Whether that'll include an option to actually go and say you cannot look at unlabeled documents, I don't know yet. We're not fully done with that feature. We'll know more when we come to preview on that one. But it is not the first time I've heard that question. We have implemented on our data loss prevention policies that you can now create a data loss prevention policy saying, for example, any email with an attachment that is unlabeled, you cannot send that off because you might want to be in full control over your sensitivity labels of documents that are shared externally. But I'm hoping, crossing my fingers here, but let's see when we get the actual feature into production.
Good. I think that was the final question we had time for today. We would like to thank you for listening in here. You will be followed up with an email with some information, and you will also get access to the recording a little bit later on. I think that's taken a couple of days to arrange. And in the meantime, if there are any questions, go to orangecyberdefense.com. There's a separate site for just Microsoft material and what we can help you with. And really, thank you for listening in.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Have a great day.